All right, so have you ever gone down one of those internet rabbit holes, like hours spent reading about, I don't know, vintage racing cars or something?
Haha. Yeah, I think we've all been there.
Right. Well, today's deep dive is kind of like that. It all started with this image that popped up online. Ayrton Senna, legend, right? Behind the wheel of the equally legendary Lotus 98T. And you might think, okay, cool car, but this thing sparked a whole conversation. We're talking livery debates, what it was like to actually drive these beasts back in the day, even how F1 safety has, thankfully, come a long way. But first things first, that black and gold. I mean, you got to admit that John Player's special livery on the Lotus, it just pops.
Yeah, and it's more than just looking cool. That livery takes you right back to a very specific era in motorsport. A time when, well, cigarette brands were heavily involved. I mean, the design itself, it's like ripped straight from a pack of John Player specials. It's genius marketing, really, turning the tar into a moving billboard. Bold, instantly recognizable.
And it's funny, right? This whole thing got people talking about whether a team today, like Haas, should bring back the black and gold.
Interesting, right? Some fans were all for it, others not so much. Like those colors were sacred or something.
Yeah, exactly. Like they belonged on a Lotus and nothing else.
It just shows how powerful color is in branding, not just in motorsport, but really any sport. Think about martini stripes on a Williams or Gulf Oil's blue and orange. You see those colors, you instantly know who it is.
It's that instant recognition, even before you can make out the car itself. And, you know, a lot of people were saying how much they love the simplicity of those old liveries, like just one main sponsor. It looked cleaner somehow.
Yeah, there's an elegance to that, isn't there? A single dominant color scheme can be so much more striking than some of the multi-sponsor mosaics you see on cars these days. And then someone just drops this comment, fucking undrivable. Talk about a reality check.
I mean, I know these cars were absolute beasts, but still, undrivable.
It gives you a little glimpse into what these guys were dealing with. We're talking, what, 950 horsepower? Almost as much as today's cars in race trim.
It's insane to think about. My car would probably burst into flames if I tried to handle that much power.
And it wasn't just the power. These cars had almost no downforce compared to what we're used to now. And forget about traction control or any of those modern safety nets.
Right. They were basically driving on a prayer and a whole lot of talent.
Exactly. Someone in this thread even mentioned the turbo lag back then. You couldn't just react. You had to anticipate, like 2 corners ahead, just to wrangle these things.
It's like that quote, driving those turbo cars was like being strapped to a rocket that occasionally went off.
Haha, perfectly put. And imagine having to heel and toe your way through all that.
Okay, you know I'm going to ask. Heel and toe. What in the world is that?
Basically, while you're braking and downshifting, you're also blipping the throttle with your heel to match the engine revs. Super smooth when done right.
And I'm guessing not so smooth when done wrong.
Let's just say it added a whole other layer of complexity to an already challenging task.
And all this while going, what, 200 miles an hour? With nothing but a flimsy helmet for protection.
Yeah, someone posted this close-up of Senna in the 98T, and you really get a sense of how exposed they were compared to today's drivers, who are practically tucked into a survival cell.
Yeah, talk about putting your life on the line every time you got behind the wheel.
It's easy to romanticize this era, you know? The raw speed, the lack of driver aids, but safety was a whole different ballgame. Drivers sat much farther forward, putting them at greater risk in a collision.
And this was, what, just a couple of years after Jacques Laffitte's accident at Brands Hatch.
Exactly. That was a real turning point for the sport. Shattered both his legs, it did. Really brought home the need for better safety measures.
It's wild to think about how one crash can change everything.
Yeah, it really makes you realize the price of progress sometimes. But those changes after Laffitte's crash, just the tip of the iceberg, really. Over the years, you've got the handset device, better helmets, the halo. I mean, it's amazing how much safer things are now.
It's like night and day compared to those early days. But you know what gets me? Even with all the safety advancements, these drivers today, they're still pushing the limits, you know, risking it all.
It's that element of risk, right? That's part of what makes Formula One so captivating. These guys and gals, they're modern-day gladiators, pushing themselves and their machines to the absolute edge. And yeah, okay, maybe a little danger does make it more exciting to watch.
No argument here. It's that fine line, you know, control versus chaos. Keeps us glued to our seats. But you're right, the safety improvements, they've been huge. It makes you appreciate those drivers like Senna even more, knowing the risks they were taking back then.
No doubt. And that image from the thread, Senna in the 98T, it reminds you that Formula One is all about evolution, right? Technology, safety, even what we consider exciting, it's always changing.
Makes you wonder, right? What will people be saying about today's cars 30, 40 years down the line? Which liveries will they be nostalgic for?
Right. Well, they look back at the halo like we look back at those old open cockpit cars. Amazed that anyone ever raced like that.
Crazy to think about. This whole conversation, just from that one photo, has really opened up a ton of questions, not just about the past, but about where F1 is headed.
And that's the beauty of it, isn't it? It's a sport that never sits still, always pushing, innovating, finding new ways to blow our minds.
Couldn't have said it better myself. All right, listeners, we want to hear from you. What do you think will be the legacy of this era of F1? Hit us up in the comments, and until next time, keep those engines roaring.